What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 2 of... Have we figured out what we're calling this thing?
Freedom Bowl.
Freedom Bowl. Welcome to episode 2 of Freedom Bowl. We had another long day of fun stuff, training, and we wanted to get a podcast rolling late in the day. We did, with Pat the Leo here, we did a course today called Unconventional Entries for First Responders, and we're kind of excited to talk about that and let that be the base of the podcast tonight. So again, it was Unconventional Entries for First Responders. He's taught it to people in the warfighter community, in the law enforcement community, and now opening up to civilians. So let's get rolling. Can we get talking about that?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So the rough outline for today was we did an 8-hour course, and we covered roughly 8 to 10-ish topics for about an hour apiece. We started with the most common things that we put our hands on every single day. So anything with a doorknob on it or a lock on it, we tried to learn how to get into that today. And very, very similar to the front door on your residential house or apartment is a padlock. They work very, very similar. Most of the common cheaper models do. And we moved into, if you got your course packet here, and you grab that. So we did kind of two sections. One section was lockpicking, which we're talking about now, and the next section is restraints. So with the lockpicking, we did pin and tumbler locks, which really is the core of what I teach. Like, that's the bread and butter. That's what we start with on every class.
So a pin and tumbler, that would be...
All right, so if you take your house keys out of your pocket right now, and the main key that you use for your house, it says master or slage or quick set or something like that. It's if you hold the key in front of you, it's smooth on the bottom, and on top it's got about 5 or 6 ridges. And if you're looking through the front, your key will have a flush bottom, a smooth bottom part, a kind of rounded tip. It'll have about 5 or 6 depth changes on the top of it to go up and down, kind of like hills and valleys. And if you look at it as if you're going to shove the key into your eyeball, if you point it towards your eye, it'll have a left over right over left pattern or a right over left over right. So kind of zigzag zig. That is a really, really common key. So for the most part, we learned that anything with a key shape like that, there's a very large probability that we can get through that with some really basic tools. So most residential and some lower security commercial door locks we went through today. We went through padlocks, and we went through 2 different types, the key type and the code type. We went through some spinning locker combo locks. We did more than just picking, as in shoving 2 pick tools, like a pick tool and tension tool in. We also did some bypasses. So guys, we did what 3 methods did we go over today for manipulating your way around that door without picking? We did the
card,
right,
plastic cover,
the old credit card trick that you'll see on the old detective movies.
Mm-hmm. The clothes hanger
or a shove knife. So sometimes you see the guy flick out a pocket knife and he shoves it in the door jamb.
Mm-hmm.
That's one method. I don't recommend using a pocket knife, but that's an option. And then that last one we didn't really get a chance to try because we didn't have a good handle.
Door, right.
We go all the way under the door and manipulate that latch if it's shaped correctly. We went over some social engineering, which if you haven't heard of the term social engineering, it is really freaking cool. The way that we used it today was for how to figure out combinations and codes and passwords. If you can think of any 4-digit code in your life, so kind of close your eyes for a second, not if you're driving, obviously, and just pick a 4-digit number, and it's got to be a password for you. So let's talk about some of the things that most people choose.
I was 444 just came to my mind, like all the same
number. Mm-hmm. So that would be like a common code, something that's easy to guess.
The number that an idiot would put on his luggage.
The number that an idiot would put on his luggage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the code. Okay. So those are that's a common access code. That's a simple combination pattern code. The other ones are social engineering, which is a number specific to you. So if I'm going to break into your house and you have a 4-digit code in front attached to your keyway, some people have those high-tech, I say high-tech, buttons, like a key code 1 through 0. If I know your phone number, and if I'm able to pull up your social security number somehow, there's a good chance it's one of the last 4 digits of one of the two of those, or your address, or your birthday in one of 2 or 3 formats, or your kid's birthday, or your anniversary, or your old phone number, or your old address. So
What if it's more than one kid?
More than one kid? Whichever one they love the most. So for my parents, obviously that one would be me. I'm the only one of my 2 brothers and I that haven't been to prison. Well, I have been, but I worked. Bringing
prisoners to the prison.
I still love both of them. So we talked about 4-digit codes, which, I mean, like I said, lock picking is kind of a misleading term. It means I use it as getting through obstacles. I don't necessarily mean it as putting a pick into a keyway and picking.
Yeah, we went over way more stuff than just picking and gaining entry.
So we did a bypass is any time that you don't have to put that pick tool in if you're going to manipulate a mechanism in the lock besides your pin and tumbler or besides your wafers. Then we did some really cool urban survival stuff at the end. We did handcuffs, we did Flexcuffs, how to break out of both, and how to properly apply Flexcuffs.
Oh, we got a video clip of that.
We do.
Maybe we could kind of spice that up, add in a little bit.
So if you check out our article, I'll go ahead and post it on my site for uncensoredtactical.com. This will be under episode 2. I'll throw up a short video of Ox. And we do it
on the floor.
On the floor, we had a proper restraint application, which surprisingly, there's not a single law enforcement officer that I've worked with where I've said, "Hey, let me see you apply Flexcuffs," and they had any clue what they were doing. It's always it's kind of painful to watch, like a train crash, like in slow motion. You can't look away. They don't know how to pull them tight. They don't know how to get the person secure. They don't know which direction to put them on. They don't know how to get them over someone's thumb. So you'll get a free bonus lesson on that if you check out our video.
Now, those cuffs, like street cops, those folks use them, or is it just like SWAT teams? Like, who uses those cuffs that we saw
There's
today?
a couple answers to that question.
Okay.
One is officers are usually issued handcuffs, and they're usually either Smith & Wesson or Peerless, and they have a chain in the middle.
Right.
And either of those brands with the chain in the middle is really crappy, and they're very easy to break out of. Multiple methods you saw today.
Which we went over.
You can upgrade those a little bit. You can get different models. There's a few accessories you can do. There's a proper manipulation of the hands behind the back that you can do to make sure you set it. I actually have a technique that I use on the way to the jail where if I see my suspect or my offender fidgeting or moving around a lot, I give them direct orders while I'm driving, and I say, "Hey, I'll place them diagonally behind me, so in the passenger seat behind me, and I'll say, I'll look in my rearview mirror while I'm driving, and I'll say, 'Hey, turn to your right towards the window.' They're like, 'What?' I'm like, 'Turn your body towards the freaking window,' and they do. And I'm like, 'Okay, now bend forward and lift your hands up so I can see your fucking cuffs.' And they go, 'Okay, no, it's cool, man, it's cool.' I'm like, 'Well, you're gonna fucking show me, or I'm gonna come back there and look.' So they show me, and I go, 'All right, great. Don't get comfortable, because I'm gonna check again on the way to the jail.'
Don't make me pull this car over.
Do not make me pull this car over.
Let's turn around.
I had a lot of practice.
Go back home.
I hear my old man say that. So,
are you just making sure that they're not
doing
the stuff we did to get out?
I don't do it to everybody. I do pick my battles, but I try not to get complacent. So if I see someone that's really doing weird stuff, I'm like, "Oh, that's weird." "Hey, turn around. Let me see those hands."
Maze.
Which I'm surprised never in training or never in discussion did anyone else tell me that that's a tactic they've used. So not shocked.
Interesting.
So officers get issued handcuffs. They're usually crappy. I don't know too many regular patrol officers that get issued Flexcuffs. In the military, I did serve on some. It's weird in the military. Both my high speed and my low speed units that I've served at have both been issued Flexcuffs. Also, none of them had the training on how to properly apply them, or how to release people from them, or how to break out of them, or what the limitations of the of handcuffs or Flexcuffs are. So, unfortunately, in that law enforcement and military community, they don't ever tell you the limitations of your gear. Well, they do for some gear, but for often, much of it they don't. So I'd like to bridge that gap for law enforcement and military. I also like to make sure the public is properly prepared should they be illegally detained. So not by a law enforcement officer, or maybe overseas, or maybe in a home invasion. And you guys successfully picked out several handcuffs and a couple different Flexcuff options.
Yay.
We might still do duct. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe on the next visit we'll do duct tape.
And then all the vehicle stuff.
Right. We did how to break into cars 101. As long as you have the authority to do so, and it's either yours or you've been given explicit permission to do so. That was pretty cool. No luck with the jigglers today. This is the first time I've had that problem. But the good news is, like I said, maybe on our first episode, I think I might have said it. What I like to bring to the table, to the kind of lockpick community, is the practical application instead of just, here's your pick, here's your lock, sit on your couch and see if you can open it. So one of the things I talked to you guys a lot today, hopefully you got something out of, was the target assessment. We did a couple drills on that and how to weigh your options with your timeline. And so what was the first question that I told you guys to kind of think about when you show up on scene? Like the very first thing, if they say, hey, we need you to lockpick or do whatever, kind of get in here. Your first kind of thing you have to decide.
That?
Right. Is it an emergency fast, or can we kind of take our time and figure it out?
Mm-hmm.
So you're already starting your target assessment. And you need to know what tools you have and what the capabilities of those are. And what's the term I said you were going to hear a bunch today? If you have the right tool.
Marrying.
We married a lot of stuff together. So how to plant your body on an object so that you can take the play or the wiggle out of it. And then you can use that to your advantage and use gravity to your advantage. And then with your tools, knowing what those will open, they will open which type of locks. There's a term I use a lot. If you're able to, if the tool is able to open the lock, is different than if you are able to open the lock. Do you remember what that lock's called, that lock type?
Openable.
An openable lock, right. So if I sit here and I take this tool and this lock and I open it and I hand it to you, it's openable,
mm-hmm.
but you need to make sure your skill set matches that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not magic, it won't open everything, but hopefully some of this training will get your skill set level and push you towards that higher edge of the likelihood that you'll open it, because it's not magic. There's no tool you shove into the door and it automatically opens for you. You got to have a little bit of knowledge of what you're doing. So that was basically, we did handcuffs, flex cuffs, we did vehicles, and we did some locks and some door locks and padlocks.
Mm-hmm.
So how does this tie into the Freedom Bowl? Well, our huge plethora bowl of topics that we talk about. Hefe, what is a plethora? Would you say I have a plethora of piñatas?
What the hell is a plethora?
So how does this tie into freedom? I like when I teach this class, there's two terms I'll use. One, if you're kind of an older than me, is I say it's another step down the rabbit hole, kind of like the old Alice in Wonderland theory, that you just start tumbling and you go deeper and deeper and deeper, and you can't get out. The other one that's a little more modern is the Matrix reference of the red pill versus the blue pill. And once you take that pill, you've seen it, it can't be unseen. You don't just get plugged back into the Matrix. So once you see how insanely easy it is to get through so many different locks with so little effort, it's hard to unsee kind of the bullshit and how you've been lied to about the illusion of security. Freedom, for me, was the same freaking way. I was under the impression that I was supposed to be blindly patriotic. I didn't know what that meant. I just knew the government's good, bad guys are bad, laws are laws because they are just, and if you break the law, you should have known better, and you should have known all 70,000 laws that pertain to you. And I grew up a little bit. I asked a lot of critical thinking questions. I had some good mentors and motivators. I read a lot of books. And once I started to realize, all right, a crime has been committed. Okay, by who? Well, this guy. Okay, who's the victim? Well, there's no victim. Okay, then there's no crime. Or the victim is the community. Okay, how did they get hurt? Well, they didn't get hurt. Okay, then there's no crime. So once I figured that out, everything crumbled and fell apart. So I was way down that rabbit hole and way down that red pill, which in lockpicking is the same way. Once you see the illusion of security, it's gone. You can do things to help build up your levels and timing of security, but for the most part, the illusion is gone. So hopefully you guys saw a little bit of that today. I'd like to hear your kind of freedom path a little bit. Put you on a spot. Your turn.
I had more questions
No,
stemming from
okay.
it than freedom path.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
the short version is my freedom path, I suppose, started out, how can I minimize my financial liabilities? And I think a lot of my initial questions in that vein were like, how can I grow my own food? Like, can I do anything at home? Looking at the money coming in and the money coming out. Well, how can I minimize some of that money coming out? That was my sort of start down that path to how can I beef up my self-reliance, my resiliency, my relying less on other people, other things. That's sort of where it started, I suppose. Unrelated to unconventional entries that we did today.
And that's where we met. It was their survival podcast workshop.
Yeah, we did.
So we did a ton of cool self-sufficiency, some critical thinking, some homesteading, some home business stuff.
The whole gamut.
That was really cool. Jack.
Well, when I was in the 3rd grade,
Oh, God.
I was reading a book called A Wrinkle in Time. And I came across something that I didn't know what it was. It was mitochondria. I found out later. But I didn't know what it was. And so I asked my science teacher. And her response was, she gave me some change and told me to go to the teacher's lounge and get her a Snickers.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, I went to the library. And I looked up the word. And I got in trouble for stealing her money and going to the library. So I decided then that maybe this is a bunch of shit. And yeah, it just kind of progressed from there. I started questioning everything.
That's funny because I went out on a date with some hot. Let me leave the rest of the identifiers out for now. Some banging chick the other night, and I told her I got kicked out of. It wasn't a Catholic school, but it was some Christian type, like after school daycare thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I told you guys this story yet or not, but I was young enough that we still did coloring books. I know that. So whatever age that is.
Okay.
And we had I'm not very religious, and even as a kid, I think I'm definitely spiritual, but I'm not organized religious at all.
Right.
So we had a special guy come in to teach our class about special prayers. Like not regular prayers, special prayers.
Not those regular ones.
And I'm like, I don't get. Immediately I was like, wait, I thought that you just are supposed to say these chants over and over again, and they help you. So he comes in, and at the end he's like, okay, any questions? And the teacher, no one raised their hands, obviously. And the teacher said, I still to this day haven't learned this lesson. I tell myself over and over. The teacher said, you can ask anything you want, and we can't hold it against you. And I'm like,
Oh gosh.
oh my God, I just had an epiphany. Looking back on my life, that's it. That's where it started. I've been lied to from the beginning. I just fell for that again in the military a couple weeks ago. Well, I knew what I was getting into, but I got into it all the same. So the teacher goes, ask anything you want to our special prayer guy. And I said, ooh, I got a question. Fine, I'll break the ice. Sir, why do we need to go to church to pray if God's everywhere?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, well, it didn't really answer me. And I said, great. Why do we need to memorize and say these special prayers if we can just talk to God? And he's like, well, it helps. I'm like, okay. Well, I got another one since no one else is asking questions. Why do we need to get dressed up in fancy clothes if he sees us when we're naked and ugly and unshaven? And he didn't have an answer for that. So, listen, I don't hold it against people that are religious. Go for it. And I don't want to sway anybody. I think it's beautiful sometimes. And I sure as hell will date women that are religious. That's fine. You can have it. But from that age, my critical thinking was like, I didn't get it. And I asked questions that they didn't have answers to, and I was told, just do it. And not in the fun Nike sex kind of way. It was just do what you're told because you're told. So I broke that ice really early.
Started young for you. Yeah. Do what you're told.
Do what you're told. And it lasted quite a while. I joined the military because I was blindly patriotic. And I remember vividly a time when I was on a ship in the middle of the ocean and I was doing a high-speed drug mission. And I was in the gym working out on my off time. And I went outside. I was tired. And I looked up at that big, beautiful red, white, and blue flag just waving. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be better than the bad guys. And America, great. We're the best because of freedom. Went back in the gym and I was like, give me more weight. I got this. But today that trick doesn't work. I don't stare up at the flag and feel revived and renewed. And I think freedom is great. I just don't think blindly believing in a piece of cloth is better and blindly believing your government is better. So I have questions, and I believe in protecting people's rights. I believe in helping people. I think it all ties in. I think a lot of our topics are going to tie in.
Yep.
In this podcast. Fuck mitochondria. I've actually never heard of that book, and I'm guessing it's a classic. Well, I've heard of it, but I don't know what it's about.
What was that?
A Wrinkle in Time?
There was
I've heard the title in the series.
Maybe I did read it. Give me a quick synopsis. I love books. That's my freaking part on.
He'll put a picture up later of his hard on too.
No, just the book, not the hard on.
Okay.
Man, okay.
Do you remember?
Bits and pieces of. I don't want to get them all mixed up together.
It's a trilogy?
Yeah, it's a trilogy. It's a Wrinkle in Time. Something in the Door. And the Swiftly Tilting Planet, I think.
What? We need to.
I mean, it was early grade school that I read this stuff.
We need to bump up your ginkgo, your Aricept or your ginkgo for memory.
Yeah, because, 30 years ago. After. Yeah.
By some French lady or French guy. Can't tell which.
That's a woman.
All right. Plot summary. Boom.
Some kids.
So you mentioned
Meg Murray's classmates and teachers see her as a troublesome and stubborn student. Her family knows that she is emotionally immature, but also sees her capable of doing great things. The family includes her beautiful scientist mother, her absent scientist father, her athletic 10-year-old twin brothers, her 5-year-old brother Charles Wallace Murray, a child prodigy genius who can sometimes read Meg's mind.
Yeah, Charles Wallace was a badass.
Trying to read really fast right here. Mrs. Whatsit. There is such a thing as a tesseract.
Mm-hmm.
Well, whatever it is, I like it. I'll read it. Let's see what else we got. Ox, you're in charge tonight.
I'm in charge. Okay. Well, I'm more curiosities, coming from this training today. You've got like $3,000 or so worth of these tools for unconventional entry in your squad car, like maybe $5,000 or so.
Squad car. It sounded like you might have said SWAT, which I'm not.
Squad.
Not yet. I was before, and I will be again, but I'm currently not.
Okay. Just to clarify, the squad car. He's the only law enforcement person, and then you've got like $5,000 worth of training gear and tools as well. So, how did you? I think you kind of touched on it earlier, but how do you get to that point where you've got bumpers and Goldfingers and key guns and all that stuff? How do you get to that?
Let's see. This is a cool one. That also started very early. My dad was a 30-year cop. He retired just a couple years ago. When I was a kid,
Apple doesn't fall far.
sometimes it does. I rolled a little bit.
It's
still from the same tree. We have political freedom talks all the time, and they do not go well. He's another one of the guys that, if I see you burning the flag, I'll kick your ass. I'm like, well, they have a right to do that. You don't, so whatever. We'll save that for later. Love them to death. So it started very young. One of my earliest memories in my life is I was freaking knee-high to him, and he brought me to training one day. So we went to, just like maybe our future office down the street, we went to some big empty building, and it smelled like gunpowder and cordite, which I didn't know at the time that's what it was. So we walk in, and there's some mean old guy smoking cigarettes at his desk with yellowed out hair, and just from the cigarettes, and smoke, and books everywhere, and training manuals everywhere. And my dad talks to the guy. He's like, all right, let's do some training. And so my dad goes into this back room in this empty building where there's like a little cot, like with a mattress on it. And there's a little nightstand next to it and a little lamp next to it. And my dad goes, okay, you sit on the floor in the corner, and then something's going to happen, and then you don't move until I come back, okay? And I'm like, sweet, I'm along for the ride. This is going to be cool, whatever it is. So he lays down in this bed, and like he puts his head back on the pillow, and there's a nightstand next to him, and it's just me and my dad in this big empty room with like concrete floor, bare walls. And I'm like, is he asleep, or what the fuck is going on? So I don't remember if it was a buzzer or some type of loud sound happens. My old man jumps up from the bed, grabs a gun from the nightstand, points his gun out, smooth transition, gun's out in front of his head, he's got a strong turret with his arms, he's moving towards the door, sighted in. He blows right through that door, out of this room, and then I guess handles whatever he handles outside I never saw. And now, today, I'm thinking, that is survival 101 for self-defense. Mm-hmm. Everyone says, I own a gun, I'm protected at home. Well, yeah, but A, can you get to it? Right. B, can you get to it when you're tired? C, is it loaded? D, do you know how to fucking use it? Because owning a guitar doesn't make you a musician. Right. Just like owning a gun doesn't make you defendable or prepared or whatever. So I saw that at a very young age. Along with that story, I also saw the credit card in the door trick. I also saw the break the window and reach through and undo the lock trick. I also saw the Slim Jim in the car. My dad kept a Slim Jim, which is an old lockpick tool that is almost obsolete now. That you slide down the window into the door of the car and just pull the lock mechanism. So I saw him do that for stranded motorists left and right when I was a kid. And even so, from that young age, it was already filed back in my head that I was like, this security thing is maybe not what it seems like. So that's where it started. And then the development as an adult is pretty easy. I joined the military because I wanted to be a cop someday, and I thought, this is cool. This will be a fun start. While I was there, I knew a few of those tricks. I had a buddy that went to the SEER school for the Air Force. Well, he was in a different branch, but I think he was this kid. No, he was in the Air Force. He went to the survival school, with jungle survival, but they taught a little bit of handcuff stuff there. So he came and taught me that. My dad also, when I was a kid, taught me some handcuff escapes. Oh, really? So all this stuff, it stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks. I went to one professional training school for urban survival that dealt with lockpicking and handcuff escapes and things like that. And it was the advertisement made it sound really cool. The instructor I thought was a complete waste, and I got screwed out of my money. I'm not here to completely burn him. Maybe I caught him when he was having a bad day. I don't know, but I paid a lot of money for very low quality, very shitty training. I learned a little bit out of it in spite of that. And then I started doing a lot of self-directed training. I learned a little bit more from my old man. I learned a little bit from some of my teammates. I had a friend who was a really good mentor for me from Washington State. He used to be a law enforcement officer out there before he joined the military with me. And he had a couple cool tricks. I learned the Flexcuff trick from him, where Greenpeace and some of these other protest people, they would hire professional protesters to come into town and train the amateur protesters on how to escape police restraints. What? So they would lace up their boots with the 550 cord like you guys had today. And when the police, pointed them out in the riot line and they said, you, And then, the team came out, grabbed you, brought you back behind the line. They would throw some zip cuffs on you or flex cuffs, toss you to the side, and leave you for a minute, and then the line would continue marching down the street. Well, once you as a protester, you were trained now, once you got behind that police line, your job was to untie your boots, put that 550 cord in between your zip cuffs, and saw it off, and then wreak more havoc.
Oh, wow.
So when I was in the military, you have a lot of downtime on a lot of our missions. So he taught me, we worked it over and over and over in every variation possible in timing. I mean, in my tip of my game out there, I was going from zip cuff behind my back to hand slipped in front, boots untied, shoelace, one end of the shoelace in my mouth, one end of the shoelace or the 550 cord still in my boot, and I'd zip my hands across, and we did the whole thing. I think if I remember correctly, I know it was under a minute, but I think if I remember correctly, I was in like the 30-second range.
Wow.
Which is smoking fast.
All that?
All that miserable stuff you guys went through today, I've been through it. I promise you.
How long was I down?
That's
And
impressive.
yeah,
I was motivated for sure.
no longer Pat the Leo. We're gonna call him MacGyver. The Leo. MacGyver. New nickname.
So that's how all that started. So when I got to my sheriff's office, I started working for a law enforcement agency locally, and I had, at that point I was already what I would call established in this kind of skill set community. So I knew some lockpicking. I had some tools with me. I had some skills, but I think that's probably the final step in my current position where I said, okay, does anyone else know how to do this? And it was just crickets across the board. So there is only one unit at my agency, and it's a 4-person unit. Like, it's a very small team that does any type of lockpicking. And from what I understand, it's very, very basic. And they don't work patrol. They're not on call. Like, they do their own thing. So no one even sees them.
What?
So for all intents and purposes, I am the only guy in my agency that can be called up to do unconventional entries or lockpicking. So I often get the call, hey, can any officer advise if he has a bolt cutter? And I'll get on the radio. I'll be like, what kind of lock is it? I'm on my way. If you don't need a bolt cutter, just call me and I'll pick it open. But I'm also not opposed to kicking a door open when we have to, which you guys need to remember too, obviously, especially in rescue, is there's nothing saying that in lockpicking you can't smash a window open to save somebody's life, which should definitely be on your mind.
Right.
That goes back to what you talked about, the assessment part.
Otherwise, I just call it lockpicking, because tactical lockpicking is your field application.
One of the things that I kind of learned about or I've been thinking about since we wrapped it up today is weakness in my own security, like back at my place, because, from just today, I was able to pick up this tension tool and a jiggler and open common padlocks in like 5 minutes. Like within 5 minutes of starting that,
24
you know.
seconds.
When you got home today, you did one in 24 seconds on the shed. Yeah.
And when we got back today, we're getting back here and I'm bringing my gear in. I see a padlock on a shed. I'm like, perfect time to try it. And like you said, 24 seconds, got that bad boy open. And I just learned that skill set today. So it got me thinking about weaknesses in my own, quote, security. So what are some of the reasons that could be important to learn these skill sets?
One
kind
is,
of touched on them earlier.
yeah, so one we touched on before is for law enforcement and military. So no agency that I've ever met and no person working for any law enforcement agency I've ever met or military has ever told me that their agency taught them about the limitations of their handcuffs and their flex cuffs, ever. With that being said, there's a flip, like know your enemy, know yourself, things like that, all those old acronyms or whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
If you get issued a pair of handcuffs, a lot of agencies go, hey, these are magic. Here's how you apply them. Good luck. It's all yours. Remember to double lock. Good luck. Well, why? Why do you double lock? Well, because it makes them more secure. And that's it. That's the end of the conversation. Or it prevents them from being over-tightened, which is also true. But you've seen today and yesterday that Once it's double locked, there's a whole separate step you have to go through. It's miserable. It, adds a lot of time to your technique. So why for military and law enforcement to take this class? Because I'm going to fill that gap that your agency refuses to fill. Once you have a mission in your mind that, okay, I'm in these handcuffs or I'm in these flex cuffs and I need to escape, what are all the ways I can do it? Let me start being creative. Let me suffer. Let me feel that pain on my body, on my wrists shit, this sucks. I got to get out of here. And you start thinking, what can I do to get out? Well, that imprints that little gem of information in your mind, and now you know, well, shit, next week when I get back out on the street and I'm on shift and I handcuff someone, I know what that feels like to want to break out of those. Mm-hmm. And I know that the information is already out there. I haven't taught you guys anything at all today that isn't already open source available to everybody for free on the internet. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing that prevents you, even if the internet didn't exist, there's nothing preventing you from buying a pair of handcuffs and drilling them open and seeing how they work and how you can overcome that, or buying a pair of flex cuffs and saying, oh, let me experiment. How could I break out?
So that kind of shoots down that whole, like, oh, you're teaching criminals
how to teach a criminal. No,
you can go hop on YouTube,
yes,
and find the information that we went over today anyway. Okay.
Yeah, I have a 12-part article I just wrote on my website. It's called Defending Open Source Lockpicking and Restraint Escapes. And that it's just step by step why I teach what I teach and why I'm okay with that. Because I do occasionally, it's not often, but I do occasionally get that, what if a bad guy learns that? Well, bad guys can learn to shoot too. They can learn to fight in a freaking local shopping mall at the jiu-jitsu school. And there's nothing stopping them from that. So I think it's very similar.
Well, so going back, kind of fleshing that out a little more, we
civilians too. Let's cover that real quick. Mm-hmm. Just like you said, when you get home, like we're doing here at the house, is this padlock any good? I don't know. Let's try it. Mm-hmm. And yours, was it a couple of 40 seconds?
That one out there was 24.
24 seconds. Yeah. Boom. Which is in several places in this house. It's a very similar padlock. Mm-hmm. And a padlock on your higher end shed, I couldn't even get in. It would take me a lot more effort to try and crack that one open. So that's great. Mm-hmm. So you now, for free, after this class is over, can do your own security assessment.
Yeah.
And you're not just attending a lockpick get-together or gathering, and it's not just you on YouTube saying, oh, how do I pick this padlock? You've already had some of the drills for, let me assess this whole target.
Yep. And I knew those padlocks were pretty cheap.
Yeah, it's often really easy to tell, if you spend 5 seconds.
So we went over double and single lock handcuffs, which are the two shades of handcuff that are out there, right?
They're all this. Every handcuff should have a double and a single and double lock. It's just whether you activate that or not once they're on the wrist.
And two things came to mind from that. For me, was one is complacency kills, or it could.
It does kill.
If you're not doing that double lock, mm-hmm. And you just pointed it out that not doing the double lock, the person in the restraint in the cuffs could tighten the cuff even more. It's not locked
it can make it a lot more uncomfortable.
And the second thing was, it's more of a question: why are people in law enforcement not taught these weaknesses, these limitations of the handcuffs?
I don't. This could be a whole show.
Well, maybe.
Here's one.
Maybe we could do a whole show.
One is a liability monkey. Liability is a double-edged knife that a lot of agencies and even companies you just don't see the second edge of the knife. You're looking at one edge of it. So it's like the boot knife where both sides are sharp. Mm-hmm. Well, if you hold it up and you're looking not at the profile, the fat way, but if you're looking at it skinny ways and you see that edge, you're worried about that edge cutting you. But on that backside, there's a whole other edge. And here's an example. A lot of police departments, you might be familiar that a lot of police agencies in this country, modern ones, will say, you shall carry a Glock. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Or they'll say, you shall carry a Smith & Wesson, this type of model, this caliber. Well, why? A lot of those reasons are liability. Mm-hmm. Now we can track that every officer is qualified on this specific gun. They all carry the same gun. We have the same armorer that cleans all the guns, that maintains all the guns. Right. All the ammo is the same. So if we all give you the same gun, if there's a shootout, you can pick up your partner's gun or switch ammo. And could you imagine if we let you choose your own gun? Okay, well, that's one side of the blade. Yeah, it's really easy on paper to manage an entire force that has the same handgun. Look at your fucking hands. Put your hands out in front of you, and whoever's sitting next to you, or whoever you're married to, or dating, or your children, or your friends, you all have different hands. So the backside of liability is, would you give your 16-year-old female child, like your daughter, would you give her a full-sized 45 caliber extended mag Glock to shoot? It might not be your first choice. You might say, let's get you a 9mm, or let's get you a subcompact, or let's get you something that fits in your fucking hands, so that when you have to shoot somebody, you're comfortable that when you pull the trigger, you'll shoot the right person, not the wrong person, because you don't struggle to qualify because it doesn't fit your fucking body. It's 2017. There are enough handgun manufacturers that you can find one that fits your hand.
Yep.
That's the backside of that liability.
That's
so the liability monkey's climbing on your shoulder, but what you don't realize is there's two of them, and you're only fighting one of them.
That's why.
So that's one reason that they don't teach you the limitations of your gear, because their liability is you must attend the police academy. You must do these amount of hours of training. You must practice how to talk on the radio. You must get this signed off. And in that, the real issues get lost. The second part, I'll try and keep it short because I'm kind of on my soapbox here. The second reason you miss that is a principle that I talk about in leadership in the military operations called, my mouth is moving too fast for my mind. That's what she said.
Take another sip.
The other principle is the principle that in modern day operations, a lot of times the schoolhouse or the training center will dictate how operators are supposed to operate. Instead of the operators saying to the schoolhouse, hey, schoolhouse, this is what works. This is what you need to teach.
Really?
Yes.
They don't do that?
Absolutely not.
What?
In the police academy, they give you a 37-step process for how you're supposed to handcuff somebody, which never, I don't think one time ever in recorded history has been done correctly in the street. And if you do it, you get laughed at, and it's actually unsafe instead of safe.
Why would they do that?
No fucking clue.
Because most instructors haven't been in the field for a long time.
Whether they have or haven't, and that's funny you say that, because instructors, they know it's bullshit, but their paycheck rests on the fact that they tell you to use this 37-step technique. And while they're teaching it, they'll look back and go, once you get out in the street, you can kind of do what you need to do, and I'm not supposed to say that, but you are supposed to use this technique. So they'll lie. They are forced to lie to you at the threat of a paycheck. So they say, my job is to check this box off that I told you this technique, and your job is to memorize it and say it back to me so that I proved that when you're in the street and you handcuff somebody, you've done it the way that we prescribed. Even though nobody ever, fucking 0 times infinity, ever does that.
Can you I think of, in healthcare, we might learn the long form or the long version of doing something, but maybe out when we're on clinical rotations or we're out in practice, we do sort of like a focus directed history and physical, or what, we do the shortened version. Is it that, or is it just completely useless 37 step?
Oh, it's completely useless.
So you don't do the shortened version where you just complete bullshit?
No, we do
Wow.
the common sense version. Well, and some of it's complacency too, because you don't want to go through a long process, or you don't want to use good tactics because it takes an extra effort. But we get the job done very frequently. Every single night we're arresting hundreds and hundreds of people, and depending on how broad you scale it out, like the whole state or the whole county or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, complacency does kill, and policy is a joke. And the academy and the schoolhouse and training is a joke. And it's all liability. It's only one edge of that liability knife. It's not the other.
Mm-hmm.
And MacGyver the Leo here, Pat the Leo, is happy to coach you in how to get through the interviews and whatever.
Yeah, and that interview process is a joke too. I think we need good cops, and I think a lot of them that are honest don't get hired because they're honest.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I have a ton of people that I've mentored to get law enforcement jobs. Some of them come to me after they've been turned down a bunch of times. And some of them come to me off the bat and they say, oh, I want to do this. I'm like, great, well, let me give you full disclosure, which is kind of my policy. The very first step in your lie detector test is that your agency that wants to start a 20 or 30 year relationship with you that you might possibly die for in the street, in the ghetto, from getting shot. Their first step in hiring you, when they give you that lie detector test, if your state allows that, the first step is that they lie to you. And they tell you, don't lie to us.
They will lie to you?
Absolutely. And let me, okay, here's an example. Here's the first thing they're going to say on a lie detector. Okay, the first thing they say to you is, hey, I'm your friend. I'm here to help you get hired. And I've made mistakes in my life too. And look at me, I'm still hired. I'm not perfect. I mean, this one time, and there's a prepared story, either true or made up, doesn't matter.
Okay.
This one time I did this stupid thing, and they'll lean in, and their job, it says right in the manual, I have the manual at my house for lie detector tests, and they lean in, and they'll make physical contact, and they'll put their hand on your leg or your arm or your shoulder, and they'll say, listen. And they make direct eye contact until it's uncomfortable for you, and they get you to feel awkward, and you're supposed to smile because you're buddies, and they say, listen, if I got hired, you can get hired. Ha 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 ha, I did this funny thing. And you're like, wow, this is weird. Why are you touching me? And you're like, huh, okay, I guess he's a good guy. I'll tell him the truth. His job is not to get you hired. His job is to find out if you have something that will preclude you from getting hired. He also has at least lied to you once or twice about the stories that they're prepared to tell you. Because some of them come in index cards and they go, this one time I was doing this thing and I got caught.
So it's like standardized?
A lot of it's standardized, yeah. Well, so, some of it can be standardized, yes.
Wow.
Or they can hear someone tell them that story and they can repeat it. Doesn't matter if it's true or not.
Yeah.
So their very first step is, and they also tell you this one, this is the biggest lie. If you are honest, you will pass this test. And they are lying through their fucking teeth when they tell you that. Because if you are honest and you have something in your background that they don't like, you will not get hired. It has nothing to do with your honesty level. Here is 100%, this is the purpose of the lie detector. It is not truth verification, which is also a terrible term. It's not detecting a lie. It is finding out if an applicant will admit or show that he has lied on his application, or if he will admit that there's something that you didn't know that that is bad in his background. So the purpose is the interview and the confession. The purpose is not, oh, this toaster oven with wires coming out of it had a spike in the chart. That's not the purpose. The purpose is the pre-interview and the post-interview. It has nothing to do with when you're hooked up to the machine. Because it doesn't tell you you're lying or not. It tells you, oh, there's a physiological response going on. It could be a lie, or it could be that you're upset, or it could be that you're pissed off, or it could be that you're nervous, or it could be that you don't talk about sex to even your parents. Why would you talk about a sexual history in your life with some complete stranger that wants to hire you to be a cop? That has nothing to do with sex. So, it's about the pre-interview. Hey, before we put you on the machine, I just want to clear up some issues. When's the last time you ever sent a picture of your genitals to another person? And you see that face right there. You're like, none of your fucking business, right?
Right.
That has nothing to do with this job. It would be different if you were like, hey, when's the last time you fucking raped somebody against their will? Because that's a crime, and it's unjust, and you should go to jail for that. That's different. We're not talking about that. They ask you things that are nobody's fucking business, and they lie to you by saying, if you just tell us about it, we'll hire you, which is completely a lie. So here's how I feel about it. One of the first questions they will ask you is, have you ever researched how to beat a lie detector test? And if you have, you're going to be really nervous because you're like, shit, I didn't expect that. Or you can expect that and use it to your advantage. And I don't feel bad about it at all. I don't feel bad telling people to lie on a lie detector because if they're going to fucking lie to you, the first words out of their mouth, there's nothing wrong with you preparing for a test. That's it.
Interesting.
It's bullshit.
So that's sort of an under the hood type
yes.
look
that
at
is
it.
definitely a behind the scenes look that you won't get.
Do
in
you
many
have
other places.
a couple more or three examples of what to do to get hired?
So here's one. If you are a saint and a Boy Scout and you don't want to lie, Forget everything I told you. Don't Google it. Don't prepare. Just go in there and good luck. If you are willing to, what I call set an even keel, like on a ship, if the wind blows it one way, the keel kind of drifts, but you can kind of push it the other way to kind of straighten out the ship. If you're prepared to do that, which I think you should be, if they start the program with them lying to you, you should be prepared to lie back to them, right to their fucking face.
What?
Yes.
What?
If they're going to start off by saying, hey, let me smile, look you in the eye, and tell you a fat fucking lie, you shouldn't feel bad about being like, haha, okay, let's do it. So that's step one. And we can go way in depth on that later. Step two is law enforcement agencies or paramedics or EMTs, firefighters, all of that. When you fill out your application, there should be a spot where it says, what other EMT, firefighter, paramedic, law enforcement, what other applications have you filed? All of them. We need to know all of them. Well, that's not to protect you or to help you or to research you. It's kind of to research you, but not in a good way. They're going to call all those other agencies. And there's a process for this. It's not like you're the first one. There's a very rigid process in place. They call all those other agencies and they say, hey, I'm with agency A. I know that you're agency B. I see that my applicant has applied with you. Send me everything he sent you. And they send it over. So now they're looking at packet that you sent them and the packet that you sent someone else. And the problem is those packets aren't standardized. The other problem is they're very intrusive. Some of them are very long. So you might not even know that you've written down something differently in two different places. So even if you're innocent, this idiot that has no vested interest in hiring you, he doesn't give a shit whether you get hired one way or the other. And he's looking at these two packets and he says, this one says list all your jobs within the last 10 years. This one says list all your jobs since you were 18. And he might not even give a shit that, well, you're 20. So you might only list 2 years on one packet, but you might list 10 years on the other packet. So it gets kind of caught in the weeds. Now, because those two are different, maybe he's not paying attention, maybe he's having a bad day, maybe he's being an asshole. He might say, these two packets are different, you lied to me, you're out. And he takes your file, he puts it in the no pile, and he sends you an email and says, you have not been selected, goodbye.
What?
Yep. So anytime you fill out an application for any agency anywhere for government work, don't just hope that they're going to keep it. Print a copy the day before you turn it in. Print a full copy. Put it in an envelope. Write down the date that you submitted it. Write down the agency's name, their address, their phone number. Put it on the envelope. And you don't have to file it in order anywhere. Just throw it in a fucking file cabinet or in a drawer and leave it there. And when you want to go apply somewhere else, take that packet back out, lay them side by side, and make sure every step of them, make sure they all match. Okay, your third tip is kind of going to be a little bit of a cheat. I at this point, I do it just for free. Nothing makes me happier than mentoring people that need it or that ask for it or that deserve to be hired. So the third one's kind of a cheat because I'm going to tell you what it is, but I'm not going to give it all to you. That's what she said. The third one is, if you know anybody that's been in the military, they can almost definitely help you. We're using the computer mic. If you know anyone in the military, they can definitely help you. But I learned a lot of my interview techniques from the military. And my old man was a cop for his whole life. And he was the one that sat on many interview boards. So I used to get his opinion as well. But I was just roasted over and over and over and over in military oral boards. So for most government jobs and for several non-government jobs, you'll have to sit for what they call a panel or an interview board. So sometimes it's just a one-on-one interview, but usually for liability issues, hooray, if two people hire you, you can't possibly be wrong. Either two or more people that sit at a boardroom table, you walk in, and there's usually a very standardized process. And standardization sucks. But the good thing about that is if you know what that standardization is, you can game it and you can crush it. And I've had a 100% success rating for the people that asked me to mentor them for the hiring process. 100% success rating that the very next department that all of them applied to, they all got hired. And I'm over a dozen people or so right now that I've mentored. So step one would be the lie detector. If you're willing to accept the fact that they're going to lie to you, so you should lie back to them. Number two would be all the paperwork you submit to them. Save a full completed copy with all the details. And every time you fill out a second or third or fourth or subsequent application, keep it with you. The third one's going to be your oral board. So if you think you're going to walk in there and you're just going to walk in cold and say, oh, hi, my name's John Smith. And they go, okay, tell me about yourself. And you go, well, and that's how you start, chances are someone else is going to beat you to the punch. So I have a very, very good program that I give to anyone that wants it. It's a mentorship, so it's not, as of yet, it's not a PDF that you can print. It's not a book you can read, but I talk you through the process. I give you tips and tools and tactics, and I'll give you the first part of it for free. So the first part is when I say, hey, Ox, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in for your interview. With an almost 99% certainty, the first question I'm going to ask you is,
Tell me about yourself.
tell me about yourself.
I mean,
just like on Jack's show.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome to the show. Tell me about yourself. If you're not prepared for that, you're in big trouble.
Right. That's like a lob.
It's a softball.
Like a softball lob.
And here's the other thing you have to think about too. So you can game it. So ask those critical thinking questions. What if you're these people? What if you've been sitting here for 8+ hours? Your back's killing you. You're old. You've been trying to text your girlfriend for dinner, and she knows you might be late, so you're pissed off. And you've heard all these freaking idiot candidates come in, and some of them are straight-laced, and some of them don't know what the hell they're doing. Some of them are 17 years old, and they're confused in life. Some of them don't want to be there, and you're like, fuck, enough already. So you need to be the guy or the gal that walks in and goes, hey, I'm happy to be here. Let's brighten the room up a little bit. I'm going to smash this out of the park. And you don't want to be arrogant, but you want to have fun. You want to make them smile. And when you leave that room, your mission should be, from the second I walked in there, so instead of waiting for them to ask you questions, you're now like, okay, ask me this one next. Ask me this one next. You're like, instead of you being like, oh, I hope he pitches the ball, you need to be the one that's like, pitch it, do it, come on, wait for it. Like, you're aggressive in your acceptance of the questions.
Interesting.
So that you speed things along. And anytime in your interview process that you get a chance to use humor, if you see that opening, don't force it, but if they say something and you get a chance that you think the room's working with you and you can make them smile, do it. Because the name of the game, here's my overarching kind of umbrella term for getting hired in a government or otherwise job. You need to get your packet at the top of the stack. That's the name of the game. You don't want to be in the no stack. You don't even want to be in the maybe stack. If you can get into the yes stack, you're golden. That's much better than the other two options, obviously. So here's how you get into the yes stack. They look at your application and they go, oh shit, which one is this again? That's a bad sign. Or if they look at your application and they go, this kid couldn't answer the first fucking question, you're going in the no.
The round file.
If they go, oh, this motherfucker, yeah, you know what? He crushed it. That's it. It's easy. So, and here's the other thing you don't know. Here's some behind-the-scenes insider look at government jobs. When they walk out of that room, if they think, this is the person that we want to hire, they call the lie detector guy and they go, listen, we really like him. And we, obviously we can't tell you to pass him, but we really like him. And then they can go to your background investigator and say, hey, we know you're about to look up this kid's background. Just so you know, he did really good in his oral board. We really like him. So they are, in essence, greasing the skids. So they're kind of preparing the landing strip. They're like helping you in. And that comes from your personality. It has nothing to do with whether you're good at your job or not. It has to do with, did those people in that room, are they going to make the effort to have a vested interest in you getting hired over some other idiot?
Wow.
So I have what I like to think is a really good program.
So that's like a higher priority thing to knock out of the park than...
Yes, and different agencies will do it in different orders. So sometimes you don't have a choice. Sometimes you'll run through the whole gamut, and the last step is meeting them and doing an interview.
Right.
Sometimes the first step is meet them, do the interview, and then if it goes well, they'll push you through the rest of the process.
That's wild. You would think that they would want to weed out as many folks as possible before.
Every step of it is a weed out. And every step, almost every single step of it, except the physical fitness test, is subjective too. So they can say oral board. Well, I know he did really great, but I don't like him, so F+, he failed. Or they can go psychological interview, meet with the shrink. And the shrink can go, yeah, he's fine, but I just don't like him, fail.
What?
And the lie detector guy can go, he didn't prove that he lied, but I think he's slightly untruthful and slightly withholding. And he writes that down. And so they don't hire you, they pick someone else. So all these steps in the process are subjective.
Wow.
So use what you can because you know that. Do the best that you can with some foreknowledge. So if you want this job, fucking work for it. Do the work beforehand to prepare and be ready to go in there. And you'll be nervous, that's fine, but at least be nervous with some smarts and be prepared to crush it. That's all.
That whole tell me about yourself question, I mean, that's super common. That's portable to other professions. Yeah. I mean, when we were applying to PA school, when I applied to PA school, that's a super common question in the interview. Like, hey, tell me about it. It's a great way to start an interview. Like, tell me about yourself. And it's people miss that opportunity to use that to really showcase, what they're bringing to the table, like you said, and make people the interview like you, to knock it out of the park.
Get in the yes pile. That's
instead of like, hey, tell me about yourself. I live in Lexington.
Wait, let me back up and say
I had to fly here. No.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. That's another tip that I learned in the military. You can be almost useless, but if you completely smash the first and second and third and fourth and fifth question out of the park, when you get to the sixth and seventh question, if you don't know dick about either of them, you almost have earned the ability to go, you know what? I don't know. Next. Because then they'll go, yeah, that's fair. And then they go, okay, next question. This one. You go, I kind of have an idea, but I don't really want to throw my answer out just yet. And you can kind of play with that. So the more you do that work on the front end, the easier it makes it on the back end. Oh, go figure. Isn't life kind of like that?
It's neat how we went down the
preparedness
Leo rabbit hole when we started out with the lockpick and stuff. Could we go back to maybe some takeaways from today?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so one of my
too. Huh? You tell me. Feel free to tell me what you took away.
Yeah,
or vice versa.
Well, one of the big aha moments for me, one takeaway was it was kind of a perceptual thing. You brought out this big, bulky, beefy, like bodybuilder on steroids of a padlock, and that like giant one, and using like almost like a paper clip, not really a paper clip, but
it was like the edge of a
pretty damn thin, and we're able to pop that bad boy open. So
how fast did that take from putting it in to opening it?
Less than 30 seconds.
I think you might have done it in 10 or less, if I remember.
Yeah, I mean it was definitely less than 30. So we see this thing that's
without fail. And with minimal skill.
Too. Yeah, and that was the first try. That was first try under 30 seconds. I mean, that thing is a monster too. So we've got this big lock. It's a tank. It weighs like 2 pounds. There's no way anyone can use bolt cutters to get it open. Yet we use this little thing, and it's an openable lock. And so I asked myself, what else is easily defeated, in my security, maybe in other areas. I think I have this big solid thing, but it's actually really easy to defeat. So it just kind of makes me take pause and think about, well, what else am I seeing is like, it's this big secure whatever, but it's easily defeated. It's got a back door or whatever. Like on, what was that, Star Wars with the fly in, shoot the missiles, and it blows up at that star. Like
air vent.
Like a little weakness, right? I don't know. That was kind of one of my big takeaways.
Yeah. What else is?
Because you brought that thing out. I thought, man, that thing is a tank.
How about this one? You go on YouTube and you Google, or not Google. You go on YouTube and Google. You go on YouTube.
Well,
and,
sort of.
Yeah, kind of. You go on YouTube and you type in media lies or media fakery, right? It takes you less than 60 seconds to find a good clip worth watching. And they show you, the one I just watched this week, 2 reporters, and they show the map and they say, this reporter is in Phoenix, Arizona, and this reporter is in Atlanta, Georgia. And they show the time zones above each reporter, and they're both standing in a parking lot, and they're both holding their hand to their ear with the microphone up, and they're like, oh, here I am in Georgia. Oh, really? Here I am in Arizona. And in the background, the same cars are driving circles through the parking lot.
Oh, God, really?
They're like, these two reporters are 20 feet from each other.
What?
And they're both in Arizona. I don't know if I have the states right, but I know I have the premise right.
Right.
So, yeah, that's another illusion of, you rip that curtain up, look behind the curtain of Oz.
Right.
So you say, okay, if they lied to me about something simple like that, what the fuck else are they lying to me about? And the government, okay, well, they don't give a shit about you for this. Do they really give a shit about you for that? They fucked up Katrina really bad. You think that you're not going to put 10 gallons of water in your closet? How hard is that?
Right.
And fun note for that: don't get the milk jugs of water because they break even under no weight. They just deteriorate.
Oh yeah,
all the time.
I just went to go clean out, sort of arrange and clean out mine. And I just got a bunch of gallons from the grocery store of distilled water. Grab one extra one per week, stack them up, and I get in. I guess there was a leak in one because I picked it up. I went to grab it thinking I'm gonna pick up something that weighs like 8 pounds. It's like, like what the? Yeah.
I live in the southeast U.S., so in Florida here we have Zephyr Hills water, and they have this one it's not like a 2 liter. It's a little shorter with your height than a 2 liter, but it's wider, and it's almost like 2.2 liters, I want to say.
Really?
And it's fat, and it's got a real thick, round, solid base. Mm-hmm. It's got a carry handle on the side, and it's like soda bottle, thick, clear plastic. It's not like that kind of powdered milk jug plastic. It's like really thick. I can hold it chest height, drop it on the floor, and it bounces back up.
Oh, shit.
Like, it's solid. So, and it's like, let's see, a couple years ago, I was buying them for 99 cents. I think now they're like $1.50 or $1.80. So, for $2, once a week, I buy one of those, put it in my garage. Mm-hmm. And occasionally, I'll use that, like, to fill up some of my carry jugs. And I just keep it rotating, but you don't really have to rotate water. So, and let's see, if you do one a week, in 4 weeks, you have 4 gallons. So in a month, you're already good to go for a couple days. And in Florida, I mean, even if you don't prepare for the zombies, which I'm not against, that's awesome. We have real life issues, like hurricanes come through every fucking year. Sometimes it's light, sometimes it's heavy, but I remember going for 2 weeks, maybe it was at least a week without water and 2 weeks without serious infrastructure like your gas, your electricity, your water. So do you really want to drink the tap water at that point? You don't have to, not if you have 10 gallons of water. And then you don't really have to worry about saving your water until you start getting low on your water. So being prepared is not such a dumb idea. Does the government really give a shit about me? Well, they didn't give a shit about the people in Katrina. Bush did a flyover, right? If I remember correctly.
I think so.
He said, "Yep, there they are. there they are. That's them down there."
Roll up your sleeves, make it look like you're working hard.
Or was it
whoever that
and
was?
what happened? Obama was. I don't do a lot of he said she said politics. I don't even want to know their names. I don't care. But I do remember seeing on TV when I used to give a shit. Obama said out of his fat mouth, he said, "I will not rest until this oil spill is cleaned up." And I remember seeing on another news site somewhere, it must have been an alternative news site, but they had like a ticker time box in the corner of how many days in a row he was on the golf course.
Oh, God.
And I think for the duration of the oil spill, he had spent like 87 days on the golf course or some shit. I have a full-time fucking job. I don't have time to go to the golf course twice in a year.
Right.
I don't golf, period, but if I did, I wouldn't have time to go freaking golfing.
Yeah. Wow.
I will not rest, but I will take my time on the golf course, that's for sure.
I'll roll my sleeves up.
So they don't give a shit about you. We do. We give a shit about you. We believe very seriously in freedom, real freedom and liberty, individual freedom and liberty, not this collective bullshit where you deserve to steal my money and vice versa. And I think that a lot of our topics, are going to tie in. This is the Freedom Bowl. We got
sort of some shade of freedom.
Bunch of shit mixed in together, and it's going to be delicious.
Did we? I don't think we talked about the story of
the bowl, or do we need?
Just I'll give a little bonus link out here. So just prior to filming or shooting the audio for episode 1, we were on so we have our little mastermind group, me and Ox and Jack. So just prior to getting episode 1 on the road, we were doing a conference call with the 3 of us. And we were all in our separate homes. And I was in my home getting smashed drunk on a bottle of red wine. And I got my little earphones in and my phone's in my pocket. So I'm just talking through the earpiece on my earphones. And the 2 of them are going to town and I'm talking and we're all, motherfuck this, motherfuck that. And so I dump out my cup of wine. And I'm a bachelor, so I don't have very nice glassware. So I use the coffee mug. So I take the coffee mug, I dump it in the sink. And I turn around and I reach in the cabinet and I grab my bottle with one hand, I reach in the cabinet with the other, and I take the cork out of the bottle, and I take this other piece of ceramic out. I start pouring the wine in. I'm like, man, that's a really long pour. I set the wine bottle down, and I say, motherfucker. I poured half a bottle of wine into a fucking cereal bowl. So, fuck it, hashtag freedom.
He sent a picture of his bowl of wine. He sent a picture to us on the phone while we were doing the conference call, and for some reason that sort of stuck with us. That's why you're single, because you're drinking wine out of a bowl and out of a coffee mug.
All the good names were taken. We're left with Freedom Bowl.
To kind of, wrap things up about today, because, we had a fun time. We learned quite a bit. It was highly hands-on, experiential. Is there anything that you can tell the listeners who, weren't hands-on with us? I don't know why I'm talking into this one because that one's not even on. Is there anything you can tell the audience that they can use? I mean, we did a lot of hands-on, like I said, but can you share anything?
One of the ones that's the least hands-on would be our social engineering, which for lockpicking for me mostly ties into 4-digit codes. So right now, we kind of brushed this earlier, but let's put it in a takeaway for you for something you can do at home without buying gear, without buying lockpicks. So let's say you or a friend of yours has a garage. It's a little different in industry, in like commercial places, or some government places do a good job with it. But for the most part, personally owned items that have a 4-digit PIN, or even a 3-digit PIN, but usually we're talking 4-digit codes. Most personally owned items that require a 4-digit code are a code that means something to the user. Very rarely is it not an important date or number or signature for them. Like we talked about earlier, there are other options. The first option is your manufacturer reset code. So if you buy a 4-digit code and you install it, sometimes the manufacturer will say, especially if it's mechanical, the manufacturer will say, the first time you install this, press 1111 and turn the handle, and that will set your first code. See if it works. And then they'll say, this is how you change it. Well, many people don't change that. So your first guess could be manufacturer code. You can look that up. You look up the brand and the model number of the lock on Google, and you can usually, through the manufacturer's own website, you can find out what their factory reset code is. Okay, that being done. So manufacturer reset. So just the standard code. 2 is a common access code, which is numbers that if you're just looking at numbers on a piece of paper, they're pleasing to the eye, they have a pattern, they're easy to remember. So here's some, probably 10 or 20 of the easiest ones. 0000, 0001, 1111, all 2s, all 3s. And then you have 1234, 4321, 5678, 8765. And then you have you have your doubles like 2, 4, 6, 8, and then you have reversed 8, 6, 4, 2. And then you have some visual ones that it's not necessarily a number pattern on paper that makes sense, but it's a number pattern in your visual cortex, it makes sense, like the four corners. Remember I showed you a picture earlier?
On the corners, yeah.
Right, so a lot of keypads, if you go the top left number, top right number, bottom right number, bottom left number, so 1397 or 1379 or something like that. So those are what you call common access codes. They have some type of pattern to them, and they're easy to remember. Number 1, manufacturer default. Number 2, a common access code. Number 3 would be your socially engineered codes. So this whole process of guessing which type of code to guess is called social engineering, because you're trying to you're kind of using your brain to steer you towards the correct code. But this third code specifically I call SE, or social engineering. This is the number that means something to you. And although you might think you're smart and the bad guys are dumb, how many 4-digit codes do you use in your life? Your iPhone, maybe a computer password, maybe a website password, your work password, your gate code, your garage code, your bank account, your app, different codes for different apps. It's a pain in the dick to remember 30 different fucking 4-digit codes. Mm-hmm. So most people have 1 or 2 or maybe 3 different 4-digit codes. What are the most common we have? Let's talk about that. Birthdays in different formats. So the year of your birth. So let's go dates. The year of your birth. Mm-hmm. The year of your anniversary. The year of your child's birth. The year of your favorite military branch. Go figure. In the government, pick your branch. Whatever date it was incepted is the date that most of their gate codes are. Don't ask me how I know.
Double dogs would be
1775, 1 year before the Constitution, right? Or the independence, whatever. Okay, so a code that's important to you. Birthdays, and then you have the last 4 of your phone number. You have the last 4 of your social. You have different, not just the year of your birthday, but the month and the day. You can try that. You have anniversary dates, the month and day, or anniversary years. If it's a single parent with a single child, you have the child's birthday in year or date form. It could be the 4 digits in your address. Or if it's a 3-digit address or 2-digit, you can go 0 and then 3-digit address. You can go 2 zeros and a 2-digit address. I have a case study I talk about all the time with you guys. I got a guy out of a state park that was locked with 2. Remember I showed you a picture of the 2 big gates?
Yeah.
Well, the address for that park was, I think, 7800 Smith Jones Highway. Well, I had a lockpick bypass, which was easier to literally walk up to the lock, hold it in my hand, put the bypass in, turn the key. It was easier than finding the code out. So I get on the phone with dispatch, and I say, hey, dispatch, can you send me the code for this lock? I'm handling a lockout right now. So while they're looking it up, I already opened it, but I was curious. I wanted to know what the code was, just for my own knowledge and training. But as I'm standing there, I do the 2-step rule. I look to the left, I look to the right, I see a big sign that says, welcome to the state park, 7800 Smith Jones Drive. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Dispatch gets on the radio and they go, yeah, code 7800. I'm like, you motherfucker. So 4-digit codes, go figure, have something to do with the address or the date or something very important to that location or that person or that agency or that group or that branch. So that would be the third group. And the fourth one is trouble for us, which is a random ass code. So you have manufactured default that you can try on a 4-digit code. You have a common access code, which is easy to remember because of the number pattern or the shape pattern. And then you have your social engineering code, which is a number that's important to the user. And then the fourth one would be random ass code. So there's really no wargaming it. You just kind of you wing it. Separate but parallel to that would be what I showed you guys today, which was about at least a half dozen different examples of keypad numbers being rubbed out on the keypad.
I wonder if we could link to some of those 2, 3, for 4. The podcast. Or
that might be the 5th.
That would be cool.
I do have some articles about that on my website. If you're going to get to this podcast from my website, or if you kind of found the podcast first, go back to uncensoredtactical.com. And I believe the article title is 4-digit codes. It's one of the first articles I wrote, so just go all the way back into history and you will find it. I will try and put a link in today's episode, but I think this one's going to be jam-packed, so if I forget it, then don't hold my feet to the fire.
The scribe will
do it.
To go back and touch on something for a moment, you mentioned the 2-step rule
And the way I kind of understand it is that within 2 steps of a lock that you're trying to gain entry to could be the key to open it. So if you roll up to a house and it's got if you're a first responder and you roll up to a house and it's got a locked front door and you have permission to gain entry, you're like, I don't have anything, you can, within 2 steps of that lock could be the key. So you kind of like check the door frame and you look around under maybe the rocks or in the flower pot or something like that.
Absolutely.
Within 2 steps of the lock. Is that,
and even
is that
for
right?
even for written codes and passcodes too. Like for
yeah,
computers,
that's some great examples.
For Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
like Wi-Fi tonight, how far do you think he had to go?
It was right. It was like inches from his Wi-Fi.
And you guys, I mean, people see it on the movies, and it's funny because you get that. I don't know what the mental term is, and I don't give a shit right now. I'm having fun and I'm a little lit. So I don't know what the term is, but you think other people will do it, but other people won't do it to you. Like, you won't do it to other people, but they won't do it to you or some shit. And here's an example. I watched the movie. The guy shows up at the front door. He goes, oh, I'm locked out. Let me go to the flower pot, lift it up. The key's underneath. And you think, oh, those idiots, they put their key under the flower pot. And then you go home, and your spare key might not be under the flower pot. It might be above the door frame to your door, like resting on a ledge above your door frame.
Yeah.
Right above the door. And you think, well, no one's going to look there. Or you think, well, if they're going to rob my house, they'll maybe break a window. Or you think, oh, they'll try and... dude, no. All of us are guilty of it. Almost all of us. And you freaking... What's the fucking guy on Congress the other day? Sent his email over his password because someone asked for it. Hey, I'm your IT guy. Can you send me your password? Yep, here it is. So
oh my God.
We're all guilty of it.
I'm your bank IT guy. Send me your bank account.
And let's be clear. I don't think that Congress people are fucking special because they were voted into Congress. That's not what I meant by that. I don't mean that they're smart. They should know better. I mean, it's an example of it happening everywhere, especially since they handle secure information. Let's be clear. There's fucking 18-year-olds in this country that handle secure information. They're called, the military. And they're just as guilty as we are. I mean, no one's immune from this.
We kind of have covered the gamut today on this episode.
Any closing remarks?
No, I mean, we wanted to kind of get the ball rolling, talking about what we did today.
Mm-hmm.
It was, like I said, hands-on. It was fun. It was enjoyable. It was eye-opening.
Good.
I mean, again, the biggest thing that jumps out for me was within 5 minutes, I've got this tension tool, this jiggler, and I'm getting open padlocks that are supposed to keep my valuables,
And here's the
safe.
I mean, we could fucking drag this on forever.
Yeah.
The people that sold you that padlock are lying to you. So I'm not the bad guy for teaching anyone how to do this. They are letting you down. They put this lock out for sale and say it'll keep bad guys out. It will not. It will keep out idiots. But it also, they don't tell you the limitations of it. All they tell you is it's for your security and it's here to help.
Yeah.
Well, even if lockpicks didn't exist, there's something called a bolt cutter. Shouldn't they at least warn you, hey, you should lock this up to keep your valuables safe, but it will not protect against bolt cutting.
Right.
They don't. They know
They
that
do.
you can lockpick it. They don't tell
Do
you.
with cigarettes. This may
Right.
kill you.
This may kill you.
But
Dude, I
they
saw
don't tell you this won't.
I saw this fucking meme the other day that said cigarettes will kill you, and they're required to put a fucking warning label on that. And they said they're dangerous, so they have to put a warning label on it. And they said they let fucking vagina out there with no label on it whatsoever.
Oh, God.
I said, are you shitting me? I fucking love it.
I thought, one thing that just popped in my mind when you were talking, I don't work in a hospital at the moment. I certainly did a bunch of clinical rotations in hospitals, and in all the prescriber lounge, and all the doctor's lounge, in the men's locker room, they've got all these lockers, and they've got those old school locks, that you had like in junior high and high school, whatever, the little twisty ones, and it'd probably be pretty obvious to bring bolt cutters in there, but
Yeah, that's the thing.
the
though.
shim, that shim that we looked at today, I mean, that's so easy to sneak in. I could go,
Anyway, just made me think of the weaknesses.
So in the class, we talked about a guy named Deviant Ollam. He wrote 2 of the books that we looked at today.
Yep.
On one of his YouTube discussions, he says he goes to sites and talks to people about securing their servers. And some of these places will have server rooms with glass windows all the way around and then a door.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll tell them, hey, I can lockpick open this door so easily, and then I can get into your server room and steal everything. You need to update that. And then sometimes the people will respond to him and say, oh, that's not a big deal. If they wanted to break in, they just smash a window. And he goes, here's the thing. If they come in here and they smash this window to your server room, everyone knows there's a smashed fucking window.
Right.
He goes, if I come in with one tiny lockpick and open your door, he goes, I can go in and shut the door behind me and lock it and steal everything and leave, and you'll have no fucking clue I was ever in there.
Right.
So that's why surreptitious is another word I use for my course,
right.
Surreptitious entry. Because if we do it the right way, technically forensics, like the FBI, if you send a lock to the FBI, they can pull that shit out and say, yep, someone tried to do this to it, that to it. That's not very common, but for the average user, you'll never know that someone was in your lock if it's properly secured when you see it the next time. So that's a big problem.
That's really interesting.
So yes, I'm very glad that we were able to lift up that veil of the illusion of security. Kind of look under the skirt of this security lady.
I don't know about security ladies, but I'm certainly eager to see what other areas, we can kind of look under the hood.
Government.
Huh?
Government, freedom, liberty.
Maybe healthcare, I don't know.
The media.
So,
law enforcement.
Maybe a good way to kind of wrap it up and look forward is what would you like to see the community of tactical lockpickers, or whatever the community might be called, where would you like to see that community go? Like, what's your vision for that, for the future?
Let's tackle that. That's awesome. Let me start by clarifying again where I am in this realm. I pick locks. I do restraint escapes. I do a little bit of social engineering. I do some martial arts. I do some shooting, some fighting, some driving. I want to fill the gap that agencies refuse to fill for their employees. I also, in training, and I also want to fill the gap for civilians where you are prohibited from learning this information. Fuck it, I'll teach you. Mm-hmm. Or not prohibited, but it's very difficult for you to come across. Or you go to a shooting school and they say, this is a good one too. Write your question down because I'm going to ask you what it is in a minute because I'm about to get off track. Okay. Where am I in this community? Okay.
Yeah.
So shooting schools will often say that, have you heard this phrase before? The 8 fundamentals of shooting. Have you heard that? Your breath, your grip,
right.
Your stance, your arms locked out, your sight picture, what else? Close one eye, open one eye, 1 foot in front of the other, right? This is another takeaway for the listeners. If you're driving, don't close your eyes, but kind of get a mental picture here. I'm going to close my eyes. You try this with me. Okay, you take your gun out of the holster, you point it at your target. Okay, I tell you, these are fundamentals of shooting. You must have these in order to shoot, right? Okay, you must have a proper grip. Now, in your mind's eye here, imagine me taking my pistol and flipping it over upside down and grabbing it like a gangster, but even more so. So the magazine's pointing up and the barrel is beneath me, but it's still pointing towards the target. I put my pinkies on the trigger. Everything else is great, my breath, my stance, my grip, except, my grip is upside down. And I pull the trigger with my pinky and it hits the target. Well, your argument is these are the 8 fundamentals of shooting. You have to have the correct grip.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if the gun's pointed towards the target when it goes bang, my grip was all fucked up. It was literally upside down. Okay, so we don't need that. Okay, you're breathing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Watch this. In your mind's eye, put a target in front of me and you. And you tell me you must have proper breathing. Watch this. Ready? I'm going to point towards the target. And if I'm pointed towards the target, I'm getting ready to pull the trigger. Ready? Bang! Let's say I hit the target. Where's your argument now? Do I need breath control? Are you going to have breath control in combat? Fuck no.
Mhm.
Okay, here's another one. Sight picture. This is one of the best
Mhm.
because the gun does have to be pointed towards the target when it goes bang for it to hit the target. But do you have to have a proper sight picture for that to happen? Because watch this one now. Ready? Let's say it's not even a real gun. If you know what simunitions are, they hurt like a motherfucker. Let's say it's simunitions or even a BB gun or like a airsoft gun or a paintball gun, right? Something non-lethal, but it's going to hurt like a motherfucker. Mm-hmm. So you stand on that side of the room, I'll stand on this side of the room, and you say, okay, well, if your breath isn't good and your grip isn't good, you at least must have a good sight picture. And you say, you believe in your heart and soul that this fundamental of shooting is a must. Ready? You close your eyes, I'll close my eyes. And I say, okay, Ox, we must have a good sight picture, right? And even in our pretend land, I'm going to close my eyes in pretend world, and I'm going to point this paintball gun towards your face and start randomly pulling the trigger. Are you going to be nervous, or are you going to be like, no, it's cool, he can't shoot me because he can't see me? You're going to be nervous as a motherfucker, right? So you, in the civilian world, as well as the law enforcement world, you are being lied to. Those are not fundamentals of shooting. Those are things that are nice to have. Okay? So that's where I am in this world. I am giving you things that are difficult to find elsewhere. And there's a lot of really progressive shooting schools out there that do a very good job, but there's a lot of them that are fucking horseshit. So when I train fighting and shooting and driving and lockpicking, I give you real life field applications, and I give you things that are going to make fucking sense in the real world. So that's where I'm at. Where do I see this this kind of community going? I don't know a huge community of tactical lockpickers. I know a big community of lockpickers. I know off the top of my head, I can think of one guy that thinks he knows what is quote-unquote tactical lockpicking. He's a fucking waste of life. That's the school that I attended. I paid $800 for a course that should have cost me $20. And I learned nothing, and I took nothing away from it. I learned things in spite of the instruction, if that makes better sense.
Yeah.
So there's him. There's a guy whose course I would like to attend very shortly. I follow him on Instagram. It's Ed's Manifesto. You can check him out. He's got some really cool restraint escape stuff that he teaches. I would really like to take one of his classes.
Ed's Manifesto?
Ed, E-D, apostrophe S. Ed's Manifesto.
Ed's Manifesto.
That's really cool stuff. And he has got really good content.
Where is he in the country?
I think he works somewhere in the southwestern United States, maybe Arizona. I'm not entirely sure of his background. I don't know if he worked in Mexico or in like the South Arizona area, but I'm pretty sure he worked somewhere near the border. I know he travels and teaches classes.
Cool.
I would really like to attend one of his, so I can bring that to my students as well. And then, I think, if you are going to teach people and all you do is teach, and you come out of field work just to teach, you better be a fucking idiot, genius, savant, or you better go back into the field occasionally to make sure your shit works,
right.
To make sure you're sharp. I'm still in the field of law enforcement and military right now. So the things that all those case studies that I bring you, most of them are mine. Some of them are from my friends that I've taught that are in the field. So we're bringing you stuff that it's not something I made up in my garage by myself on my own because I was, feeling the Zen chi or whatever. So where do I see the community going? I see this becoming much more popular. I know a lot more cops that are now turned on to it. They're like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Really?
I don't know if the solution in law enforcement will be fixed, as in complacency and lack of motivation and lack of training. I do know that there's guys like me and there's guys like you that we will pay our own money out of our pocket to make sure we are better prepared at our jobs, especially when our jobs have either our life or someone else's life on the line. I know that we'll do it. And for the prepared citizen, for the prepared citizen, let's be clear, a government website, .gov, is not going to teach you how to prepare your life for freedom and liberty and tyranny and government. And they're not going to teach you self-defense. They're not going to give it to you on a spoon. They don't give a fuck. They don't care about you.
Or to teach you to be prepared for hurricanes or whatever the likely, Mother Nature thing going on around where you live is, storing up water, all that stuff that we're going to talk about.
So where do I see this community going? I see it growing, but I don't see it. I don't think this is going to fucking get rich quick scheme. I'm not going to retire on this. This is something that I think there's a niche market for, something that I think a lot of people, if they knew it existed, would be more into it. So I'm growing my social networking, my social marketing. I'm not active a lot on Facebook or Twitter, although I do have accounts, and it should be Uncensored Tactical on both of those. I'm very active on Instagram and on my website and on YouTube. It just Uncensored Tactical is the name. It's easy. We're going to be doing some blogs, and I'm hoping get some good White House talks coming from you next time, and then maybe do some medical talks and see if we can get some future plan for that, and maybe
Absolutely.
even some
We got a whole.
some brain stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I was just thinking as you were talking how doing the locks and grabbing the jigglers and the tension tools and like getting in there and trying to solve this problem. I don't know. I feel like it taps into some guy psychology.
Dude, you know how many
something.
How many times I've been on? I have a lot of time on deployment, so a bunch of us I try and mentor people with lockpicking and a bunch of other shit on deployments. You know how many fucking times people have told me that it's the first 5 minutes you'll pick it open and you'll be like, oh, that was a cool kind of like a rush, like I solved the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they have that one fucking lock that they can't solve,
There's the one we got back here.
We got here.
That I don't know what brand.
Padlock versus
Master
trailer,
lock, whatever. There's that one padlock on the whatever that is, the boat or whatever out there, and you haven't gotten it.
Do you know how many people they have that struggle lock?
Yeah.
That when I'm like, fuck, you got to suffer, just do it. Once they pop it, do you know how many people have told me, oh my God, they're like, it was almost like a release. And when I say release, they're like, it was kind of like, it was almost, it wasn't as good as sex, but they're like, it was so similar. They're like, I tried, I worked, I tried to figure it out, I solved it, I worked at it, I put the pressure in it, I tried to use my fine motor skills, I thought about it, I wargamed it.
Yeah.
I kept going, my fucking fingers were cramping, and they're like, and finally I heard that noise and I felt it. I felt the lock just shake in my hand and it popped right open. And they're like, dude, they're like, I'm on deployment, so I'm not banging any dudes, and there's like one chick here, so that sucks. They're like, it was almost a sexual like experience. So many people have told me that. Absolutely.
I like it.
And I fucking love puzzles and moving my fingers and Rubik's cubes and shit like that. So
yeah, if you're
this fits.
This is way better. This is way better than the fidget spinners that we got.
Yeah.
If you're listening way in the future, it's 2017, and we've got these things called fidget spinners. Where did that come from?
I just picked up my first one at 7. Not bought, but I literally picked it up in my fingers. I'm like, this is it, huh?
It's a Ninja Star.
It's just a little fucking spinning
Just
thing.
get a Ninja Star.
Ninja Star.
Over the past it seems like 2 months, those things have just come out of nowhere. Now they're everywhere.
All right, so that's a recap of everything. That's the direction we're going. That's
Man, covered the whole gamut today.
You got me, Pat Leo here. You got Ox, and you got Jack.
And thanks so much for sharing everything this evening. Kind of giving us the overview of the course and lifting up the skirt and looking under the hood and looking everywhere. We hope you all got a lot of actionable information from it this evening. Even though this is all virtual, this is all remote, hopefully there's some actionable, high-yield, valuable information that you can kind of parse out and tease out from this. And thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'm very happy you guys spent some time with us. Thank you very much for that. And hopefully we will see you guys on the next one.